The Gentlementor.
I was talking to somebody today about where they're like, well, you guys should talk about what we should do with the politics. I'm like, I should send you a podcast that would help you with that because we've been talking about that for the past couple of weeks.
We have. I was hoping we'd come up with something really hot and controversial tonight. Not necessarily political, but something really, yeah. Well, we've been noticed that a lot of our advice and encouragement that we do boils down to kind of the same couple of two or three things.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It makes it easy that way. Yeah, turn the TV off, focus on your family, focus on what you're doing, be consistent. And that's all good stuff. And I don't want to let's never say that again. But, a week off where we said something really exciting, that would be really fun. Like something like.
Did you think of anything really exciting?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I had nothing. I just.
Well, I did think of something this afternoon. I was on my way home.
Oh, cool.
And
awesome.
I was like, we could have some fun with, I don't know, maybe we can't. Maybe we'll get 2 minutes into it and go, well, I was done.
Well, throw it out. If nothing else, we can bat it around and try to think of a more controversial take on it.
I'm sure we're good at that. We can find a controversial take on just about anything. Yeah.
That's what this internet stuff's all about. This podcast and this stuff, let me tell you what it's all about. It's the clickbait. We need more clickbait. We don't have enough clickbait.
We need more clicks and more bait.
Yeah. More bait.
Not in the coffee can.
More bait to get people clicking in the coffee can.
Yes.
All right. So what do you got? Right. What do you got, man?
All right. So
exciting.
I got a question. All right. So here's the question. Here's a question with a fill-in. So it's those questions, and then you fill in the end, and then we talk about the answer.
Good.
I meant to sit down. I meant to sit down and think of a few things to fill in, but I got a little bit busy before we got on the call, surprisingly. And
lucky you.
Yeah. So here's a couple things. And this is very common. This is not anything fantastic. But it might spark some interesting conversation.
Okay.
What do you wish you knew before you fill in the blank and then answer the question?
What? But seriously,
I said it wasn't going to be that impressive. What do you wish you knew before? For example, I'll fill it in. Okay. What do you wish you knew before you got married?
Oh. See, I can answer the question if it's finished, but if I got to finish it and answer it,
I can't do it. I can't.
That's too much pressure. I'm setting a trap for myself.
What do you wish you knew before you had kids? What do you wish you knew before you?
Yes. Man, those are great questions.
Got saved before you.
That's what you should have done. Is made a list with all the.
That's what I was going to do.
Oh, okay.
Hello, as in what I just said.
Oh.
Are you really drinking that much?
I just started. Maybe that's the problem.
Okay. Right. Maybe that's the problem. Let's take a break. Okay.
Yeah. We got to get these numbers way up.
Play some music there in the middle while we just take up here.
Okay. So we could just.
So we can make up these questions. And I can write them down.
Well, it's
and then we can go back and hit on them a little bit.
At least take notes so we're not repeating ourselves. It'd be a good idea.
like that would ever happen. Repeat ourselves. You clearly overestimate.
Allow me to guide you to a previous podcast episode. So what would be the first thing? What do I wish I knew? Let's do this chronologically.
Okay.
So what's like the first
big important life move?
Yeah. Would you say graduating school, getting the first job?
One of the two. I was going to say getting the first job, but then you said graduating, so I would think one of those two would be the big one.
Moving from little kid life to big kid life. The thing that I wish I knew was that there's no permanent record.
What? Okay, hold on. I'm doing two things at once, and I
don't
multitask very well. So what do you wish you knew? There was no permanent record?
There's no permanent record.
Explain.
Everything like in school when you're little, they can buffalo you with like threats of like, intimidation, physical violence. I'm going to call your parents. You're going to get swats. You're going to get expelled, yada, yada. You get older and older. Finally, like the last, probably your 4 years of high school there. This is going to go on your permanent record. If you screw up, this is going to go on your permanent record. There's no permanent record. It just doesn't exist. After I left school and I was out of school for a while, I wanted to go back because there were a lot of things I wish I had known when I was in school. But that's probably the first thing I learned after school, and it's actually taken years to learn. Because there is this kind of impression that we have, the sense in which we feel like we never live things down or we always carry. But there's no actual permanent record in school that anybody's going to look at. Okay. Even your high school education, they don't even look, like when you apply for college, they don't even look at your senior year because you're not done yet. They're only looking at the first 3 years of high school. So that even that doesn't really count as any sort of permanent record. There's no permanent record to go. When you graduate college, they don't look at your report cards, and they rarely consider your some positions will look at your GPA or something like that. But you graduate with a diploma like everybody else got. That's what you got. There's this we have this sense, or we're given this sense that these things that we do wrong, or the things that our mistakes will follow us forever. And they don't. And in fact, I think that our belief that they do actually extends their life. If we would learn that these things don't last forever. You make mistakes, you make corrections, and you move on.
Interesting. So when you say permanent record, you're specifically talking about your record in school, because I went to high school with some kids who had a permanent record, criminal record.
Yeah. If you get a felon, that kind of record will stick with you, and even that doesn't always stick with you, because look at all the people that are still like in the government being politicians. What? I mean, when you get in positions like that, and I'm not saying they're necessarily criminals, but I'm saying they fail up. It's like there's at some point you hit this level where your failures start to nope, you sucked at that, so we're gonna give you a raise and move you to another department and make you a head. At some point, it's like the Great Divide, where the part of the river goes to the Atlantic and part goes to the Pacific.
Yep.
Pacific, not specific. Pacific, but yeah. And at some point, I don't know if it's a
Mississippi
power or wealth, or what it is you got to hit. What's the threshold? But at some point, you can hit a threshold where your failures will actually move you up the ladder instead of dooming you. So there is that.
And I think that would probably be my answer to that particular question. What do I wish that I knew before graduating high school was that failure is not an option; it's a requirement. That failing forward is okay. Like you said a minute ago, failing up, which I like the idea of failing up and failing forward, not for personal gain or in the sense of criminal activity, but
right.
I think a lot of times, and even today, I still struggle with failure. I struggle with, and I think we've talked about this before, with execution, because I'm afraid of the failure. I'm shy, I'm bashful to execute something because I'm like, I don't want this to be a failure. And I feel like the longer I think about it, the less likely it is to fail. And I've learned that's not true.
It is, but only by virtue of not doing anything.
Only by virtue of not doing
anything. And I think failure is a big boogeyman for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I mean, it's ubiquitous would be the word. It's has so many faces that it wears. The face of failure, the fear of failure, if we learn to embrace failure and to go, in order to learn and to grow, failure it's a must. But
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
I have a personality type. My youngest daughter has a personality type where if I try something once and fail at it, I don't want to do it again. And it's not just my personality type. That's how most people are. It's just some people have a thing where it's like, well, I have to master this now. And I don't have that thing. I'm like, didn't master it the first time, I'm out.
See, and I find myself that way, not that way, just the opposite in certain things where when I fail at something, I'm like, nope, let's start again because I'm going to get this right. You are not going to conquer me. And yeah, I'm okay with failure, and I notice that probably more in like my woodworking stuff that I do as a hobby. I'll get something, I'll cut something, and I'll be like, I'll be angry. I can't believe I cut that too short. That's the only piece of wood I have. Dadgummit, I'm going out and buying another one, and I'm going to cut it right, and I'm going to get it right. I'm going to prove to you that I can do this, and I can do this right, that I am not incompetent. So Yeah, that's just being honest with myself, I think. And hopefully that's a good trait that kind of spills over into other things in life too. I don't know. I hope. But yeah, failure. We shouldn't be afraid of failures, and especially the most important thing we can learn is from other people's failures. I think, not other people's successes, because what we don't see a lot of times is how many times they failed before they succeeded. One of my Bible professors always used to say, you can learn from your mistakes. No, no, he said, you can learn from mistakes, and they don't have to be yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's good. That's good to know.
My elder sibling would frequently comment on me and say, "You've got a lot of book smarts, but you don't have any common sense because you haven't
Yeah.
been out and made mistakes." And I'm like, "I've been watching you my whole life, and that's kind of where I learned to avoid a lot of the stuff that you did." So
Hmm.
I like to think that I learned those
Are these
lessons
words that
on
actually
your
came out of your
dime.
mouth, or just was this inner dialogue?
Probably inner dialogue. It may have come out at one point in time just because
Yeah.
I got that designation more than once. On several occasions, I got that, and I'd be like, well, to be honest, it's really that you guys were such screw ups, and I was watching the whole time that I learned to avoid the pitfalls. So, yeah, and encourage people. Like I said, not, man, I didn't, I don't know. I didn't mind, as you may have heard in a recent episode, I didn't mind putting myself in situations to be made a fool of or to make a fool of myself. But I hated the failures, and what I hated about the failures wasn't the failing, but it was the sense afterwards that everyone was measuring me through those
Hmm.
failures.
Yep.
That was constantly the lens everyone was viewing me through because that was the lens I was viewing me through.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's the part of failure I would like to encourage people not to take part in.
Yeah.
It's great to fail because you can learn, and as you said, learn lessons wherever. If it's a lesson you don't have to personally fail for, you can learn through someone else's failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Double up on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't think that it lasts forever. You can outlive just about anything, except
True.
stuff that you don't. But
Yeah.
I mean, when it, except when you don't,
Except from those things that you
you
don't.
you make mistakes, and they seem at the time they can seem like, oh, I'm never going to outlive this. I'm never going to die. What is it? Live this down. That's the phrase. Live it
Yeah.
down. I got to
Right.
live it down.
Right. But
And you
a
know
lot
how
of
much
times,
stuff I've had to live down.
a lot of times, other people don't even see those as failures. We see that as failures because
Right, right.
we put that standard against our own self. One of my greatest lessons that I've learned this past year in 2020 had nothing to do with the pandemic.
What?
Yeah, surprisingly, had to do with my dad. So I'm gonna
Election
try.
fraud?
No, no, had or election or politics had to do with my dad. I'm gonna try to get through this without getting emotional. But we went on vacation in Florida back
You ain't
in
gonna
June.
make it. I
I'm
already
gonna
hear
make
you.
it. No, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. You keep doing that, and I will. So we
Ah.
went on vacation. We went on vacation back in Florida, and back in Florida back in June, right after we spent his birthday there. So he turned 83, and we went parasailing. And we get on the boat, and so they had to take us. They take us in one of those inflatable boats with the big engine on it, like you'd see, the Navy SEALs. And they take you out to the boat that's got the parasail on it, and you actually launch off the boat. So we get out there, we get on the boat, and then we do the parasailing and everything. And then you've got to get off that boat back onto the rubber boat, and they take you back to the shore. Well, my dad he was trying to step down into the rubber boat, and he just couldn't bend down and step down in the boat, and just fell backwards and hit his elbow on the deck of the boat, and it started bleeding. And he gets in the boat, and he's sitting next to me, and he's just sitting there. I said, "Daddy, you okay? You hurt? You anything?" He's like, "No, I just feel so old. I fell down." And I'm like, "You know what, Dad? You're 83 years old, and you busted your elbow because you were changing boats in the middle of the ocean because you were parasailing. That is not a failure. To me, that's like, you're 83 years old and you were parasailing?
Yeah,
Heck yeah, I was.
yeah. You
To
blogged
me,
that.
to
Blogged
me,
that.
yeah, to me, that's a badge of honor if you're 83 years old
Absolutely.
and you're parasailing. So, but he just felt so bad, and I realize now that's kind of been my whole mantra, and I think I've said this before: is I want to die old doing something young, and so that's to me, that's it. I mean, that's a more of a badge of honor that you bust your elbow because you were switching boats in the middle of the, Gulf of Mexico because you're parasailing at 83 years old. I'm okay with that. That's not a failure.
Yeah.
That's a
No.
trophy.
That's cool.
So yeah,
That's
look at my
the
band-aid. Look at my band-aid,
yeah,
everyone.
yeah, yeah. A shark got me.
Yeah, shark got
I was
me, and I
parasailing.
wrestled that sucker to the ground and
You
took him to
should
the bottom of
see
the
him.
ocean. So anyway, all
It,
that
it,
to
it
say,
reminds me of the old thing, and I'll never quote it right. I get these moments here where I want to quote something, and I'll try it, and then when I go back and listen to this to edit, I'll go, "That's not how it goes. It goes," and it's got to do with I don't want to write legends. I want to go do the things they write legends about. Something like that.
yeah, I like
That's
that.
to
I
me.
don't think
That's
I've
what
heard
that
that,
is.
but I
Yeah.
may have heard it. But that's good. Yeah.
And that ain't right. Like I said, tomorrow when I'm listening to this editing, bing, it'll come right back to me, and then
Put
I'll
it put
go.
a put a lower third up on the
Yeah,
screen.
the actual quote
The
is.
actual quote is.
But yeah, I
That's
think
hilarious.
that's tremendous. I mean, I remember this isn't my dad, so and I won't say who it is. And there's a little likelihood of me getting emotional, but I remember him, one of my ex bosses, who was in his 70s, going with his children out to the East Coast, and they were going to spend a summer vacation on the beach, and he went and bought a boogie board and was trying to boogie board, and they're like, "Oh, look at it." I'm like, "That's awesome."
Yeah.
I
Why
mean,
not?
everybody's like, "Ah, ha, ha, look at these." I'm like, "Man, that's great," and he don't
Yeah.
care. He don't
Yeah.
care that you're laughing at him. He don't care.
Right. Right. And I that's the same thing too. And I see, when I see very elderly men on the beach in their speedos, I'm like, I don't know if I want to look at that, but they've earned the right, certainly,
I
to
ain't
wear
gonna
whatever
tell
they
him he
want on the beach.
can't.
I don't, hey, good on you. All right. So, what do you wish you knew before you got your first job?
Oh man, man, I have such a checkered history when it comes to employment.
Okay,
I
so
don't.
let's give us what was your first job?
My first job. That's hard to say. You know, I had a job when I was a kid, and I stayed with my aunt in the summer. It was mowing the lawn. It was
Okay.
mowing, but I was mowing the lawn for a nursing home. It wasn't like doing people's house. I had to do her house too, obviously, and she was the administrator at the nursing home, and that's how I got the gig.
Okay.
So that and the only thing I knew there was it was my aunt I was working for, so don't screw it up because you'll never hear the end of it. You never go home from that job,
Never.
which prepared me for life in ministry.
Ooh, that's true. You never go home from a ministry job.
Yeah, and the next job I had was working on a riverboat, washing dishes and cleaning.
I remember that. I remember we talking about that.
That job taught me that I could get up and go to work, that I had to make myself go get up and do it. There was nobody there to make me or take me or any of that stuff. Where the
Yeah.
nursing home mowing the grass, I was 10, 12 years old, so somebody had to take me.
Yeah.
This is, I'm 16 and I didn't have a car and I didn't drive, but it didn't matter. It was up to me.
Yeah.
And that was the first time when it became, well, like that, where it's up to you. You have to do it. Nobody's going to make you do it. And it's like you wake up and go, I don't want to go. It's early and I'm tired. And it's like, well, you don't have to go. It's like, yeah, I could just stay home. It's like, and you go through all that and learning. But that's what did I wish I knew before I actually had a job. I wish I knew it doesn't matter where you work, you ain't going to like it.
Mm.
Some days. You'll have
Maybe.
days where you might like it. You'll have days where it's You'll have days where you hate it.
Yeah.
None of them are perfect.
That's very true.
So,
So
that would have been good to know because I think I spent a lot of my younger, and I think a lot of young people do spend their time looking for this ideal job.
yeah.
It's like there's not really an ideal job. There's better jobs and there's worse jobs, but they all have crappy days. They all have days you don't want to be there.
Well, and that's one of the other things that I also learned in when I was in Bible college was they talked about a job is always in threes. There's a third of it that you will love. There's a third of it that you will tolerate, and there's a third of it that you will hate. So just know that those three things are always there in the job. And I look back on my life and I go, yeah, there was a lot of times that I had to tolerate, certain people, and there were times, and I didn't mind it, but I didn't really like it, and there were times I hated taking out the trash and painting and those kinds of things. And then there was a third of it that I loved getting on stage. Stage. Did I say stage?
I like that you said it was stage.
Getting on stage with my friends and doing some cool stuff. And, that was always fun. So, yeah, I hated the bus. I hate the bus. That's not a secret. I hope Mick's listening to this right now. I hated the bus ministry. I hated being on the bus. I love a bus. I love the kids. I love the kids. I loved having them come in, but man, I hated driving. I hated being on that bus.
There was very little about it that I hated. I loved most of it. What I hated was the interpersonal drama, which is what I hate about most things still. I felt like we had thanks to Jesus and the whole Bible thing, we knew what we were supposed to be doing. I felt like
we had an idea. We just didn't.
I felt like we had a good base of operations. I felt like we had a good group of people for the most part, but we could not get that group of people working together using those resources for that purpose.
Yeah.
And it was just, there was always some kind of interpersonal drama going on that had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't the question. The question is, what do I wish I would have known before? Oh, before ministry, it ain't all going to be a Bible study. In fact, almost none of it will be a Bible study.
What do I wish I knew before I went into ministry?
That
question is not Jesus.
Yeah, that one's very easy.
Absolutely.
That's my biggest misconception about it. We're gonna sit around and pray and talk about theological stuff, and we're gonna
people are gonna come to the Lord by the thousands.
No.
You forget their parents. Yeah. And it's not new when you say, I would have loved the church if it wasn't for the people. But yeah, if they'd only told me about people, I would have loved it. No. So what I wish I knew before my first job, I'm going to say somewhere between here it is. I wish I knew that if I just showed up, I would have been ahead of everyone else in the game. Sometimes just showing up makes all the difference in the world.
I am living proof of that.
And I try to teach that to my kids. Sometimes if you show up, you've beat 50% of the kids probably already, even if you show up to the game, and not just show up, but show up on time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this a minute ago while you were talking, because my first job was at a very famous Mexican restaurant. If you're from the Mid-South of the Denver area, you might know it as Casa Bonita, the beautiful house. No longer exists. Oh, well, the one in Denver is still there.
One in Denver is still there.
Yeah, I think it's privately owned. It used to be owned by a corporation, but that was my first job. I really liked it. And then I go back and I realized, no, wait. My first real paying job when I was a junior in high school, my girlfriend's mother worked for this guy who was pretty wealthy. And he wanted someone to take care of his garden. He had a nice, landscaping and stuff around his house. And he wanted someone, and he said, I need someone. And so she came to me, and my girlfriend's mother said, hey, he's looking for someone to take care of his yard. Would you, be interested in that? I was like, yeah. Well, I went once or twice, and he worked all the time. So I just showed up at his house. He gave me his garage code or his shed code, whatever, and bought some tools and stuff. And I just used it, whatever. I went once or twice, and I never showed up. I let it go long in between times before I showed up, and then finally one day I just heard, he's done with you. You don't need to come back. And I was like, oh. And I just wish that I had showed up. I just wish that I had been there on a weekly basis like I should have been, instead of I was turned away. I mean, I was a junior in high school, and I was basically, what we have now during the pandemic. People are just working from home, and they're trusting you to get their job done.
Right.
Your job done. He was trusting me, a junior in high school, to get my job done, and I just didn't show up for it. And had I showed up, I probably would have, trimmed the rose bushes and the hedge, the verge, and would have trimmed all that stuff, and he would have seen it and been like, I'm getting my money's worth. but I never did. So I just wish I showed up. So I'm an admitted gardener instead of a Mexican restaurant server
Or
at
a carpenter.
Casablanca, or a carpenter, or a carpenter. Anyway, so yeah,
Well, that's
showing
fun.
up.
That's good. That's good stuff. Yeah, just being there. But you're
Just
ahead of the game 50% of the
you're
time.
50% if you just show up. And yeah, and that's, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Hawaii. Actually, it's a family member who lives in Hawaii, and they're like, they, I got hired. They got hired in Hawaii pretty quickly because they just needed someone who would show up on
Mm-hmm.
good surf days. Because the people in Hawaii, and it's a good surf day, they just won't show up to work because they're surfing.
Right.
Because the surf is great, the wind is great, the sun is great. They're going to get out there and surf. They just don't show up. And they're like, we just need someone to be here. We just need a warm body to be here. And so they were like, oh, I got a job. It was super simple because I showed up when I needed to be.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's all it is. Just got to show up.
Yeah. Show up when you're supposed to be there. Put your phone away, and learn this phrase. How can I help?
Mm, that's Andy Stanley. What can I do to help?
Yep.
Yep. And surprisingly enough, try that in your family. Well, maybe not you, but
No, that's
right.
right. I always I would go to a job or go somewhere where someone needed help, and I wanted to help, but I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do. And rather than make a mistake, I'd stand there watching.
Yeah.
I was attentive. I was ready. As soon as somebody said do such and such, I would have. But I never thought to go, can I do something to help? It was
Yeah.
only in my late 20s, maybe early 30s, that I suddenly went, oh, if I just say, can I help? Is there something I can do? You can find out.
I've heard that phrase from you tons of times.
I
Because
know,
there were
but
lots of things that we were doing, and you would always say, "What can I do to help?"
it took me
Here,
a
hold
long
this,
time. Yeah.
hold this paint can.
I am
While I
so
climb up on the ladder.
qualified. I am so qualified to hold stuff. It's uncanny.
You are, and
Few
that comes
few
up quite
people
often.
are.
That comes up quite often. And in fact, there are times. In fact, I was just doing something today where Deborah had to hold something while I was filming something, and she was like,
I wish Doug was here.
"Am I doing a good job as Doug?" And I'm like,
No.
"Yeah, but I just prefer to have Doug here holding something for me."
I'm so qualified at standing by and holding things. Okay, so what's next? So
I
that we
don't,
did.
I don't know. Okay, so we got
marriage.
high
Want to do
school. Yeah,
marriage?
let's do marriage. What do you wish you knew before you got married?
Oh man, this is this is where I've learned a lot of stuff. This is one of the places I was severely lacking. What do I want to know about? What would I want to know about marriage? It's not 50-50. It's 100.
No.
It's 100.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All day, every day. That as cool as it sounds to say, I would lay down my life for my wife. If someone was trying to shoot her, I would stand in front of the gun and the bullets would hit me and they would kill me. That ain't what it's talking about.
For you.
It's talking about the kind of death where you don't actually get to die. You just get to stand there and not get your way. And that's a far more painful death.
More painful. It's worse than just losing your head.
So
Literally.
so I would say some of that information there I wish I would have known before the marriage. And there's some other things. Let's just say there are a lot of stereotypes in movies and TV shows that aren't necessarily true. In case you kids hadn't picked up on
TV
that
shows?
yet.
Are you watching that on TV? On TV shows? Were those
No.
TV shows?
Well,
Those
the
TV
joke
shows in
in
the 80s?
the
That
joke-
wasn't an Alf.
Here I'm married with children, being
Okay.
not something you should play in your life around, but that would be one example. There's always this trope in 70s and 80s sitcoms of the old married couple, and the woman is always dissatisfied because the man is disinterested. This is a myth. Just leave it at that. But yes, I wish I would have known that it's all that marriage sinks or swims on sacrifice. That love, even though it's completely obvious, and in retrospect at the time it didn't get any airplay with me. That it's all about how much you can give yourself away for the other person, not how much you can get from them.
Yeah.
And that was my backward, immature point of view upon going into the marriage thing. So
Yeah.
there's mine.
I think mine, similar to that, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was the death part. we lay down our lives for, a man is to lay down his wife, or lay down his life for his wife, like Christ laid down for the church. But yes, and I think a physical death would have been a lot easier. But I think
you will be praying for bullets.
Yes, I think what we don't see, and what I see a lot of, is a lot of guys will get married and they continue to spend the gobs amount of time they spend with their bros, and they don't give attention to their wife, or they spend the gobs amount of money that they have always spent on themselves when they were single. They don't realize when you get married, laying down your life means it's over. You have to pick up something new.
Bye, everybody.
Forward. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Here's a problem too. Here's a way we could deal with this. The bachelor party should look more like a funeral visitation.
Yes.
Awake.
Fantastic. Yes, that would be great. The bachelor party for real bachelors. Yeah. Sorry to see you go, man. We enjoyed it. We loved the moments. Yeah, here, let me share my greatest moment with you. Yeah, and read an obituary for the groom. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to or will always live that way, but if you went into it expecting that, it would be a lot easier.
Well, and here's
I think
the thing.
A lot of very immature people get married.
True.
Men and women.
Sure,
and just like you said, the guys think, dude, we're still going to do our dude stuff. And
right.
Our dude,
it's going to be dude stuff, except now I get to have sex with my wife.
Right.
No, that's not.
And a lot of immature young women think, it's going to be just us now. It's just the two of us, and we're just going to be together all the time. And all the time we're going to be right together, right up against each other, squeezing and hugging and fondling.
Yeah.
Like, no, that don't work either. Yeah, neither one of those extremes works. Balance.
But here's the thing, and this is an advantage that we have being men of faith, is that we know that when you lay something down, that God gives back to you something better. So it's not a laying down of your past life and losing something. It's taking a piece of silver and giving it away so that you can get a block of gold later. That's what it is. You like that? Are you good?
I think you might be overselling it a little. A piece of silver and a block of gold.
A block of gold. I was going to say a piece of gold.
You would be willing to change a small piece of silver for a slightly larger piece of gold, and
all right. Well,
gold's worth more, so in the end, you're still ahead. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You are ahead, even if you got a nugget of gold, a grain of gold, or whatever. You lay that silver down for it. Yeah, that's what it is. It's you laying something down. What Christ laid down for us, He gained incredible, immeasurable times over what He gained, and what we gained as well. And not to mention that, what you do for your wife, what you do for your kids, future, et cetera, your family, so on. So with that, let's move on to kids. When you're ready.
It's worthwhile to say, and not because I don't personally want to ruin anyone's marriage or relationship or anything, but man, if you knew before you got into that relationship and you could actually make that assessment prior to the wedding, so it didn't have to end in divorce. Maybe it could just go, hey, we're not ready.
Yeah.
We ain't ready yet. Yeah. And you got to come to that place of maturity. I was thinking about it today in terms of our current political situation. We are, because we're humans and we're always concerned with mortality and the end of things, we are so caught up in the end, we rarely stop to think that almost nothing ends without something else beginning.
That's true.
So this may be the end of something. And people are, this is the end. We can't. And it's like, well, yeah, but what's... And it could be the beginning of something awful, truly horrific, but it will be the beginning of something new. So you've got that to look forward to.
That's true.
At least it won't be boring.
It's always good. Yes, that's true. And as with anything, and this goes without saying, you get out of it what you put into it, right?
You should put that on a T-shirt.
I think I will, or at least a pair of boxer shorts.
Life is like a pocket. You only get out of it what you put into it.
Thanks, Forrest.
It could be on a shirt with a pocket. It could have an arrow. Life is like this pocket.
And it just be bulging with stuff. You don't know what's in there, but it's just bulging with stuff. People are like, what's in your pocket? Well, wait, back off. It's my pocket.
what I put in it. That's why I'm going to get something out of it.
That's funny.
Kids, huh?
We're like a magician's hat. You just pull some stuff out. Whoa! How did that rabbit get in there? I love it. And now,
it was a dove, but it couldn't fly away because my arms are only this long.
That's what it was. I thought you were being like, "There's nothing in my hands."
No, it was me pulling handkerchiefs out of my pocket.
Yeah, I knew what that was.
A bird flew out.
I didn't know if we were doing, spirit fingers or what.
Glory. I'm worshiping.
All right, what do you wish you knew before you had children?
Oh man, I probably knew it. I think I actually knew this. Well, here's what I remember. I remember having a conversation, and man, this would have been in high school, like when I was in high school, and having a conversation. I don't even think I was together with my wife at the time, but the conversation was with her brother, who I was friends with prior to that, and still am. But we were talking about it. He's like, I can't wait to see what your kids are like. And I told him then, I'm like, dude, I'm never having kids. And he's like, what? How could you never have kids? You would be such a great parent. And I'm like, no, I'm a terrible human being.
Sorry.
Kids should never be around me. That's a horrible, horrific idea. And he didn't understand why, and I didn't really understand why, but I knew I didn't feel like I should be a parent. Probably because I've always been kind of an emotionally unstable person. But for those years that I was beginning in ministry, when you and I were together, I stabilized. And I started thinking, I'm cool now. It's cool. I can have kids. And I had kids, and the first couple of years, everything was great. But when, the job went away and life got difficult again, I went back to being that emotionally unstable person. And now my children are grown, and I can see the impact it has had on them. And there's no...
being emotionally unstable?
My instability has had an effect on my children.
Yeah.
And there's no undoing that. And that's crappy. It sucks. But I wish I would have understood. I wish I would have had the perspective to see. And this is weird from the guy who just told you a few moments ago. There's no permanent record. Okay, scratch that. There is, but not like on paper. It's written in the lives of people that you live around. That's the permanent record for your mistakes. And so...
Okay,
yeah.
So to sum it up...
I'm not sure how someone telling me, hey... with all of your might, try not to be a wreck around your kids. I don't know that I would have been able to avoid it, but I might have been a little more aware of it. Maybe not. It might have not made any difference at all. But sitting here in retrospect, I wish somebody would have been there to go, dumbass, take it to the garage or something, dude.
So, I'm trying to back up and try to grab this into a bite of.
Okay.
It's perspective. You wish you'd known about the perspective of
the impact that my state of mind would have on my children.
Okay, gotcha.
Things I would have known before I had kids. I would like to have had a better idea of how deeply impactful, how traumatic my trauma could be upon my children. How about that? I was undergoing trauma, and I was really caught up in that, and because of that, I didn't see the ripples that were occurring.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have been more aware of that. Or maybe not more aware, more aware in an effective way. It wouldn't have done me any good to just know it if I couldn't have done anything about it. Yeah. It would have made me feel worse. So, but, yeah.
The Gentlementor.